What do you think of when you hear the Japanese term shogun? Do you imagine witnessing a fierce battle between samurai warriors, their swords clashing in the misty dawn? Perhaps you see their colorful armor gleaming in the rising sun as they charge into battle. The shogun were powerful military leaders in early Japan, commanding armies and ruling the land with strength and wisdom. Their power was so great that the shogun leaders, not the emperor, controlled Japan for much of the Middle Ages. Their reign, called the shogunate, was a key period in Japanese history and had many similarities to Europe's feudal system. That leads us to our world history mystery question. How did fierce samurai warriors, epic battles, and powerful shoguns shape feudal Japan? As we answer that question and learn more about the shogun, we'll take a look at Japan's feudal system, steps to unify the empire, and see how the Battle of Sekigahara impacted the unification of Japan. Are you ready, historians? Our story begins during Japan's Heian period, which lasted from 794 to 1185. This was a time of great cultural achievements, as the Japanese wrote beautiful poems and stories, developed unique art and fashion, and were led by an emperor. But as time passed, the power of the emperor and his advisors weakened, and by 1185, the shoguns began to take control. This marked the start of feudal Japan, a period lasting for almost 7 centuries, with the shogun as the true power behind the throne. As we dive into Japan's feudal system, be sure to look for similarities to feudalism in Europe. What do you remember about it? You may remember it had a king at the top, with the landowning lords to help, knights who protected the kingdom and lived by a code of chivalry, and peasants who farmed the land. Technically, the emperor remained at the top of Japanese society. He was respected and seen as a godlike figure by most people, but in truth, he didn't have much influence. The real power belonged to the shoguns, the military leaders who ruled the country. Beneath the shogun were the daimyo, powerful landowners who controlled large areas of land. The daimyo had their own private armies of samurai, skilled warriors who protected the land and their lords. The samurai lived by the bushido, a strict code of honor. The bushido emphasized traits such as bravery and loyalty. Most people in Japan were peasants who worked the land and grew the food everyone needed. They made up the bottom level of society, along with artisans and merchants. So let's pause here for a moment. What similarities do you see between the Japanese feudal system and Europe's? The two certainly had a similar structure. In Japan, the shogun was like the king, and the daimyo were like the European lords. The samurai were similar to knights, and peasants worked the land in both systems. Both systems included a strict hierarchy where people had specific roles and duties. And the bushido, the strict code of honor the samurai lived by? Yes, it's very similar to the knight's code of chivalry. The shogun's role was crucial in this system because he kept the country stable and protected it from enemies. The shogun made the rules, collected taxes, and made sure everyone obeyed the laws. Does it make you wonder how the shogun's power affected the emperor's role in society? The system of having local lords with a powerful military ruler helped Japan stay organized and strong. A lot like European kingdoms, huh? But just like in Europe, Japan's feudal system had problems. In Japan, it led to significant internal conflicts. Daimyos, the powerful landowners, frequently battled one another for power and control, leading to instability throughout the empire. The samurai, who served these daimyos, often had little loyalty to any central authority, such as the emperor, and instead pledged their allegiance to local lords. This lack of centralized power meant that Japan was often fragmented and divided. During the Shogun era, the emperor had little power, as landowning daimyo and their samurai followers battled for control of lands in each region. A move toward unification of Japan, bringing it under one leader, began in the 16th century. No one had a larger role in that happening than Oda Nobunaga. He was a daimyo who helped unify Japan by winning battles against other daimyos. Through Mia technology, we're able to read computer-generated details of Oda's accomplishments. Here's a section on the strategies that he used. Often, my troops were outnumbered, so I was never afraid to try new things. For example, I encouraged the use of firearms in battle, which gave my troops a big advantage over our enemies. And here's some changes that Oda made to the samurai under his control. Instead of giving the samurai land in exchange for their service, we offered them money. I wonder why they did that. Let's see. This made them more dependent on the daimyo and less likely to rebel against their lord. We also required them to live in the towns they protected rather than on their own land. This made them more loyal to the daimyo and the community. Sounds like it worked. It says here that Oda had a big influence on trade in feudal Japan. Let's read on. We limited the power of the Buddhist monasteries, which had controlled much of the trade in Japan. This opened up trade across the empire and gave more control to merchants. Interesting. Let's find out if Oda did anything else to improve trade. We built roads and bridges to help the economy grow. Better trade routes led to better trade. Oda's victory at the Battle of Okehazama was important. Let's read about that. At Okehazama, my troops defeated a much larger army by attacking during a thunderstorm to surprise the enemy. We also deceived the enemy with a fake camp to make it look as if we had more soldiers. Our knowledge of the terrain proved valuable in both instances. This victory began to unite samurai warriors under one shogun instead of loyalty to their daimyo. So, there you have it. Oda Nobunaga made big changes to the samurai and trade and led troops to victory at a major battle. How do you think Oda Nobunaga's leadership made Japan stronger? Pause here to respond. Payments and other changes made the samurai more loyal to the daimyo, bringing stability to the empire. Improving trade strengthened the economy and brought in more wealth and power. Finally, successful battles like Okehazama were a big step in unifying the military power in Japan. All of these led to a samurai showdown for control of the shogunate. The Battle of Sekigahara, fought in 1600, was one of the most important battles in Japanese history. Sekigahara was a turning point because it ended years of fighting between rival lords and led to the unification of Japan under a strong central authority. It was like a massive chess game played out on a battlefield, with two of Nobunaga's former allies fighting for control. On one side was Tokugawa Ieyasu, Oda's trusted friend, who wanted to unify Japan under his rule. Tokugawa faced off against samurai loyal to Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who fought to be Oda's successor. Even though Tokugawa's army was smaller, he used clever strategies to win the battle. One key move was convincing some of Hideyori's allies to switch sides during the conflict, which helped Tokugawa secure a decisive victory. After the battle, Tokugawa became the most powerful man in Japan and declared himself shogun. This began the Tokugawa shogunate, which ruled Japan for over 250 years and led to more than 2 centuries of peace and stability known as the Edo period. What changes do you think Tokugawa made to bring about that peace? Pause here to respond. Tokugawa made several moves to reduce the power of the daimyo, which helped prevent them from challenging the authority of the shogun. One important rule was called alternate attendance, where the daimyo had to live in the capital city, Edo, every other year and leave their families behind. This made it hard for them to rebel as their families were dependent on them back home. The shogunate also controlled how much land the daimyo could own, which limited their power and wealth. And they made strict rules about building castles to limit their size and protection. These changes kept the daimyo from becoming too strong. The shogunate also controlled the economy by managing trade and taxes throughout the empire, which kept the daimyo from becoming too rich and independent. These changes made Japan more unified and stable and led to the peaceful Edo period. Earlier, we asked how fierce warriors, epic battles, and powerful shoguns shaped feudal Japan. Let's review. Feudal Japan was a time of great change and development. The shogun and the feudal system played a crucial role in maintaining order and stability, while leaders like Oda Nobunaga introduced important reforms that helped unify the country. The Battle of Sekigahara was a key event that led to the rise of the Tokugawa shogunate, bringing peace and unity to Japan for over 2 centuries. By studying feudal Japan, we can understand how leadership, innovation, and strategic decisions shape the course of history. Next time we travel across an ocean to marvel at the mosaic of cultures found in North and South America. Until then, keep exploring the past and shaping the future. And remember to always be clever. Hey!